Hello, I hope you're well. So in my last video I talked about the importance of learning to reframe a lot of things that we have to do or that happen to us every day and we consider a bit of a drag, and then said we should learn to view them as opportunities, or otherwise to recognize the privilege that we have in being able to do those things, and so on. And I gave the example of my session with the dental hygienist. And today another example came to mind. So last week I went to Ferrara in Italy for a company retreat, and I had to give a presentation on the work I had been doing these past few months. And at the beginning I wasn't super duper excited about having to prepare the presentation for several reasons, because I wasn't sure what I was going to say. I was afraid I wouldn't give a good presentation. It had been a while since I had last done one. It was something extra I had to do. But then once I reframed the issue as, oh well, I have a job, which is good. It's a good job, so I shouldn't be complaining. And also I've been meaning to work on my communication skills for quite some time, so let's see this presentation as an opportunity to do that. And in the end the presentation went pretty well, I think, so I was told. And a few days later I actually came across a 2-hour class on how to communicate more effectively, and it was really interesting. They were talking about things like the speed with which one talks, the volume of your voice, the gestures you use, whether you give some melody to your speech or you're more monotone. So after watching the class I decided, oh well, actually, since all of the presentations have been recorded, why not go over mine and see how I did, keeping in mind those parameters I just mentioned and a few others that came out during the class. And for example, I think my speed was pretty good. So I don't talk quickly, but I don't even talk super slowly, so that okay. My melody probably isn't the best, in the sense I'm afraid I'm a bit monotone. As one of my theater teachers said once, I always sound a bit detached, which isn't my intention, but that's probably how I come across. I don't know, maybe you can give me some feedback on this as well. Actually, that would be super useful. And also my volume isn't the best, in a sense I tend to speak at a low volume, and that's something I know I need to work on. And actually something else that was interesting that came out of the class was that the way we speak, usually, unless we work on it consciously, intentionally, the way we speak is decided very early on in our life. It usually has to do with, family dynamics, as most things, or the fact that we maybe admire someone and want to copy the way they speak. So in my case, for example, the fact that I've always been pretty quiet and spoke at a low volume was probably due to the fact that my parents would yell quite a bit, and they wouldn't really give me the possibility of speaking up and speaking out. So I just learned how to just shut up or speak at a low volume, be as unobtrusive as possible. It's actually interesting as different children react differently to the family dynamics, because for example my brother instead went a different way, and now he tends to raise his voice quite a bit as well. So he kind of adopted the model that was given to us by our parents, whereas I went the opposite way. And the purpose of all of this is not to judge your family or yourself, but it's to approach things with curiosity, and that's actually the theme of my video today, to be curious about what happens to us and who we are and what we do. So on the one hand, learn to reframe what happens to us. On the other hand, be curious about our reactions. Why do we react poorly to something? Why do we judge ourselves or others in a certain way? Why do we behave in a certain way? And it's curious that all of this came out of my presentation, because my presentation led me to then look for videos about presentations and communication more in general, and that led me to the class I mentioned. And that also led me to an interesting discussion with one of my students last night, because I still have a few students from my past life as a language teacher whom I have conversation classes with in the evenings. And he has a wonderful voice, and he told me he's actually pretty good at singing. And we started talking about the importance of learning how to use your voice to communicate better, because as they said in the class, we give a certain image of ourselves to people. People usually form a first impression of us based on how we look. But also, as soon as we start talking, there's also a vocal image of us that gets shared with other people, and that contributes to the first impression they have of us. And I actually hadn't really ever paid much attention to that, but it's totally true. And so we were talking, my student and I, about how important it is to learn how to use your voice and to be curious, first off, about what your voice sounds like and what it may communicate to other people, what other people may think of you, the impression they may get based on that. These videos are going to also be another way for myself to pay more attention to how I communicate, what I sound like. Oh, another thing that came out that's very important is to try not to use or filler words like, right, like, too often, but that's extremely difficult. I noticed that also in past videos here I use filler sounds or words quite a bit, especially filler sounds, but I think unless you're a professional speaker, that's something that's pretty common. But always I can always keep it in the back of my mind, and little by little try to improve on that as well. Not because someone else is judging me, but again because it's nice to be curious and always little by little be learning something new, trying to improve. And it's important how you communicate is important, because you want to try to communicate with other people as well as possible, right? So that's all. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Let me know what you think, and I hope to see you again in another video soon. Bye bye. Ciao.